Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all okay. Thanks for joining me today. I've got another product review for you today in the form of this Senhaix GT-10. So this is a brand new radio that's come out of China from Senhaix, and I've managed to get hold of one. So I'm going to review the UHF version for you today. They do this in UHF and VHF, and it's a 199 channel single band radio. So what I'm going to do in this video is we'll bring the camera in a minute, we'll have a look inside the box, we'll go through the basic setup, basic features, we'll look at programming as well, and then in part 2 we're going to do some longer range testing on the radio and see how well it performs. It does look quite a chunky, decent radio, quite rugged and quite big, so I'm expecting it to perform pretty well. So what I'll do now guys is I'll bring the camera in and we'll have a look inside the box and we'll show you how to set this thing up. Okay guys, so look inside the box. We've got the user manual on the front there. This is in full English and it's got basic instructions here for setup. It goes through the functions, it goes through the programmable key buttons in there. We've got all sorts of things in here, optional functions. We've got DCS codes and CTCSS codes in there for when you're programming. So that's quite a detailed manual, which is nice. 25 pages long. It's got a bit of a troubleshooting guide on the back should you have any issues with this. As I say with all these radios, quite easy to use, quite easy to set up, and if you've used them before you're not going to have any issues. So we've got the manual there should we need it. Next we've got quite a chunky battery there, lithium ion battery. It's 8.4 volts, 3000 milliamp hour battery. It's quite a chunky heavy battery on there. It's got the contact points on the back for charging and the release clip on the bottom, so that is that's a whopper of a battery, probably twice the size of the UV5R battery, so that's looks like it's going to do well. We've got the antenna, so we've got a UHF antenna here which is rated at 400 to 470 megahertz. Quite a chunky antenna, not too long. It is a UHF antenna, so it is slightly shorter because it's a single band antenna. I should say that Senhaix actually sent me a longer antenna there for UHF, so we'll look at that when we do some testing with this radio. We've got the obligatory wrist strap there should you need one. And we've got the radio, which we'll have a look at in a second. Underneath here, we've got a power supply there. It's got decent thick cord on it for plugging into the mains. Depending on which country you're in, you may need an adapter for this, but that's pretty standard from radios coming out of China. It's a 12 volt power supply for charging the radio, so that's going to be more than enough to charge that big battery. And we've got the base, a really solid chunky base for this radio to sit in as well, with the usual charging contacts in there. It is a 5 volt output, 700 milliamp hour charger, and it takes of course the 12 volt input from that power supply. So that's everything you get inside the box. Oh, and a belt clip as well, which just clips onto the back. So there's no screws for this, it just clips straight onto the back. Okay, so if we look at the radio itself, you can see it's really rugged and chunky. We've got the green accents on there which stand out really well, and the display is behind this plastic here, which I'll show you in a second. Setup is simple. You just bob the battery on the back like so, and it slides along that rail and clips into place, and you've got the release on the back. Belt clip is simple. Just bend up that pin and it slides into the little socket on the back and fixes into place, and then the antenna just screws into the top like so, and that's basically set up. You're ready to go. The only thing you've got to do with these is program them, but I'll show you that in a minute. On the outside of the radio you can see we've got a couple of programmable function buttons there, as well as an orange one on the top. We've got a chunky PTT switch there. On this side we've got the speaker mic port, and this also doubles up as the programming cable port behind a rubber seal, and of course we've got the speaker microphone on the front. On top we've got the channel select rotary encoder, and then we've got the on off and volume encoder there. Okay, so if we switch the radio on, you can see we've got an LED indicator on the top there, and we've got the LCD display that's on the screen. So you can see we're on high power there. Now the thing to point out, these radios do low, medium and high power, and the specification is 2 watt, 5 watt, 8 watt and 10 watts. And the reason why there's a fourth power specification is because VHF and UHF radios like this won't do the highest power on both bands. So if you remember back to the Bofeng GT3TP, the 8 watt radio, it would actually do 8 watts on VHF and around 6 on UHF. So this radio on VHF will do 10 watts, on UHF it does 8.5. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. So The specification for the radio on the whole is a 10 watt radio, but it will only do that on the VHF band, and that's not an issue. That's what the radio is designed for. So it has got the 1 watt, 5 watt, 8 watt and 10 watt power outputs on there. So basic operation is pretty straightforward. We've got the PTT there, which is green on transmit and red on receive. I've just keyed a repeater up there that I programmed in. So other than that, it's really straightforward. We've got some programmable buttons on the side, which I'm going to show you in the software, but I've got mine to do monitor on a short press, keypad lock on a long press, and on the second button, short press, this gives you the voltage, and on the long press, opens up the squelch. I've not actually programmed the button on the top to anything, but you can set this to turn the display on and off and all other sorts of settings, which I'm going to show you in a second. So that's basic operation, but as you can see, it feels really solid in the hand. It's quite a chunky, large radio. So definitely one for sort of outdoor pursuits, walking, hiking, climbing, that sort of stuff. It's going to definitely stand the test of time, I think, given the feel of it. So what we'll do now, guys, is we'll look at the programming software and we'll show you how to program this radio up. Okay guys, so this is the programming software for the GT-10. Now this programming software does support a number of different radios, so some of the functions in here aren't necessarily compatible with the radio that we're looking at today. But the programming software is really simple. As you can see, we've got the frequency input here for the channel information, so I've already put a simplex channel in there. So you can see we've got the receive and transmit frequency set at the same because it is a simplex channel. We've got CT-CSS and DCS tones here for decode and encode, which we're going to leave off for a simplex channel. We've got DQT type here is special and normal. You don't need to do anything with that, just leave that to normal. We can set the transmit power to low, medium or high. Channel spacing we can set to wide or narrow, so 12.5 kc channel spacing or 25 kc channel spacing, so we'll just leave that on narrow. You can add or delete the channel from the scan list. We've got busy lockout, compander on or off, scrambler on or off, and then epilogue /180 or /120 you can just leave to off. For a repeater, it's very similar. We're just going to put the repeater's output on the receive frequency, so in this case we'll just put 430.9. Transmit frequency is the input, so 438.5. We don't want to put a decode CT-CSS on, but we'll put an encode on of 82.5. We can leave all these settings to normal. We'll just put the channel spacing down to narrow. We can leave the power as high, and we can turn the epilogue /180 off. And that's how to input frequencies. So we've got a simplex channel and a duplex channel there, simplex and a repeater. We've got key functions here, so you can define how long a long press is. So on the buttons on the radio, you can press it for 1, 2, 3, 4 or even 5 seconds to activate it. I'm just going to keep it to 1. And we've got TK, which is top key, SK1, which is a side key 1, and SK2, which is side key 2. And you can set all these different settings in here, so a short press or a long press on all 3 buttons. So you can select it to monitor, change the power level, scan, Vox, compander, scrambler, emergency calling, check battery level, light on or off, or channel lock on or off. So that's quite straightforward. We've got Vox functions here, so if we just click on Vox, you can turn Vox on and do the settings on that. And then we've got optional functions here. So we've got beep tone, we've got Roger beep tone, we've got the voice on or off there. We've got all sorts of settings here, which I'm not going to go into in detail because they're quite straightforward, but you can set those settings there. And then you've got scan information, so what you can do here is create a priority channel for scanning. You can select when it goes back to scanning, you can select the scan speed, you can select the delay and dropout on transmit and receive when it will resume scanning. So that's all quite straightforward programming there, guys. You can just close these off, they'll still save the information you need, and when you're ready you can just go on communication port, make sure you're on the right communication port, and then you can just write that information to the radio. You don't need to put a password in, just click OK and that will write the information to the radio and you're ready to go. Okay guys, so that was a bit of an overview there for you on the Senhaix GT-10. I'm sure you'll agree it looks great. I think the green definitely makes it pop out, and it's nice to see some colour on some of these radios that are coming out. So yeah, I think the green's a really nice touch. They do a black version as well, but of course I've got the green one. I think the display as well is brilliant. As I said, some other manufacturers have tried doing this, and it's underneath a layer of sort of thin plastic. This is quite well protected, so it's not going to break should it be dropped or knocked about. And yeah, I think the programming, simple enough to program, like with a lot of these Chinese radios. I'm just really loving the rugged design of this thing, so I definitely think it's going to be a winner. So with that, guys, I think I'll wrap this one up. Stay tuned for part 2, because I'm going to be doing some long range testing with this thing and see how it performs. I'm expecting it to do really well. And if you have any comments, suggestions or feedback on this radio, drop them in the box below and I'll get back to you. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, then make sure you subscribe. I've got plenty of videos on radios coming up as well, as you can see behind. There's like a backlog of radios to review for you, so all that's coming soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And I'll say 7-3 for now, guys. Thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.